Valley. Days ago, we went to the winter pasture, and gradually some of the herdsmen moved to the spring pasture. Behind me, you could find some cows and sheep grazing there. And in the spring pasture, the temperature feels much better than that of the winter pasture. That's why we took off some layers, and it feels very warm under the sunlight. In the distance, you could find some green grasses growing at the top of the mountains. And we would love to introduce to you about the Sarblak Spring Pasture with two guests invited. The first one is from Sarblak Township, the village committee chief, Madam Sai. Hello, everyone. I am Sainia from the village committee of the Huocheng County, Qibalaga West Village, and also Madam Zhang Ming. Hello, everyone. I am one of the experts from the Livestock Academy of Science. I know you two are closely related with the husbandry industry. So, Madam Sanya, could you please introduce to us about the details of the spring pasture? The migration started from early March, moving from the winter pasture to the spring pasture, which is a big area of land. So once arriving at the spring pasture, we need such a warm place for the herdsmen to do the migration and for the livestock to graze from March to June. During the 3 months' time, the ewe are going to give birth to small lambs. So we must stay in warm environment with proper temperature. So that's why they migrate to the spring pasture. As Madame Sanya has introduced, we were impressed by the spring environment. Unlike the winter pasture that we spent days, there were heavy snowfalls and cold temperature. So what about the Sarblak spring pasture? In this village, we have about 57,000 mu of spring pasture, and there we have divided it into 3 zones. We are staying at the Ainaba spring pasture because of its location. It's very close to us. So the weather is warm and grasses grow earlier compared to the others. So during this time, we can provide sufficient food for the livestock. And our herdsmen will stay here with their livestock here during the time period of March to June. Now you can find the livestock grazing on the grass, and our herdsmen have already put up their tents. Could you introduce to us about the settlements of the herdsmen? Upon arrival on the grassland, they would put up the tents. Usually the tents have a large space. It's a very comfortable place to stay. And also it's portable for them to carry during the migration. So usually the herdsmen live in such tents during the stay here. And also it has the functions of a windproof and rainproof. As has been mentioned, it's very portable to be dismantled, so that's very convenient for the migration. And also it has very good windproof functions. Now let's walk inside to have a check. In the yurts, you could find the wide space for the herdsmen to live. Wherever the Kazakh nationality moves, they usually carry such yurts with them. And also inside, the interior decorations are ethnic, very beautiful. And if they stay inside, it feels warm. During the raining days or snowing days, there would be no trouble caused to them because of such yurts. It feels very warm inside. After all, it's warm outside, added by the yurts. It's more convenient for them, even during the cold days or the raining days. Their lives would not be influenced by the bad weather. And also, above us, we can find such a window to let in the skylight. During the warm days, we could dismantle the rooftop, and during the raining days, we would put the cover back to keep it warm inside. And you could see some furniture put here, like a table. The Kazakh ethnic group loves to invite guests to their homes. Because of their hospitality, they prepare such food on the table inside. And since it's the migration season, whenever the herdsmen arrive, they would invite them to come inside and take a sip of their tea. They're very hospitable. Since you work here in the pasture land, you must have felt the hospitality of the Kazakh ethnic group. Yes, indeed. And also inside the yurts, it contains not only the food, but also beautiful decorations. You could find the Kazakh embroidery. And they made such cloths by themselves. Interior designs are ethnic flavors. And also, usually during the weddings, for Kazakh people, they must prepare such things, especially in the family of the brides. For example, the beddings, the blankets, covers, and pillows must be prepared for the wedding. I'm curious about the whereabouts of the owner of this yurt. We're just walking directly. They must be busy outside. I can show you. Walking outside, we could see some stands put up on the mountain. It's actually a washing line to dry the blankets. Since they just arrived, they haven't all put away their things. Right now, they are drying their blankets outdoor, and then they would place them inside the yurts. After all, they would live here for 3 to 5 months. They are very positive about their life here. So they would be more than happy to decorate their yurts. They would love to make their environment beautiful. And I see that very beautiful blankets with beautiful embroidery on are dried on the washing line. Just like the Kazakh saying goes, no matter how difficult the times are, we must live them in a positive mood. We rely on horses to graze. So we would have some horse racing contest. Even during the busy days, they try to entertain themselves with such activities. Horses must be good partners of them. I can hear the mooing sheep. As I said, the ewe are about to give birth to lambs, so we need to do some epidemic prevention. The herdsmen are injecting vaccines for the lambs. Those newly born lambs must take vaccines to prevent epidemic. In order to guard against infectious diseases. I see this lamb has just taken an injection. Madam Zhang Ming, is it usual for such small lambs to take vaccines? Yes. Within 2 hours since their birth, they would usually take vaccines of the tetanus. And after 3 days since their birth, the lambs could take vaccines of the canker. During the injection, it's usually a subcutaneous injection. And after 20 days since their birth, we would inject the lambs with vaccines to guard against more infectious disease, especially the pneumonia. And also the injection goes through muscles. I could find a label on its ear. The label is like the lamb's identity card. You could find a code and some numbers on the label. When we keep the sheep, the economic benefits of the sheep matter. Meanwhile, usually the lamb's economic benefits are related positively to our fine management. So we put the label on the sheep's ear. It's a necessary step. With that label, we could have the custom-based management of the sheep. As to the numbers on the label, that's the identity code for the sheep. If you check the numbers, you will find the details about that lamb. For example, the birth date, the information about vaccination, and some breeding information. Such information would pave the way for detailized and personalized breeding and keeping. Another point for the label is that we could track the infectious disease development, and such sourcing is very important. If you find the infectious disease, you could track its development in the future by following the information based on the ear tag. As to the infected sheep, you could isolate them to prevent further dissemination of this disease. And it's just like food safety. China pays more attention to food safety, including the livestock safety, because we have to feed our population in a nutritious way. In order to be nutritious, food safety must be guaranteed. The ear tag is just like the tracing tool according to the husbandry law. All of the sold sheep must wear such ear tags. You could only imagine the importance of the ear tags in ensuring the safety of livestock. So, such an ear tag carries the functions of an identity card and health status information records. All of the vaccination information is included by the ear tag, and it's the only identity card for the sheep. The majority of those lambs have already carried the ear tags. So usually they would put such an ear tag on them after vaccination, yes. Usually such baby lambs were born in the springtime, and those were just born in this spring, yes. The lambs have a sequence of identity numbers. So do all of the lambs were born in spring? Yes. In Xinjiang, the second largest province to sheep raising in China, every year there would be a birth of 30 million lambs. And there are two ways of raising them. The first one is to raise the sheep in the pasture land, especially the lambs born with multiple lambs together. And in 2 years' time, there might be 3 time points for the birth of those lambs. For the majority of pasture, most of the lambs were born in springtime. Why spring? There are several reasons. The first one is about the favorable weather. In Xinjiang, we are home to vast land and a clear division of the weather conditions in the 4 seasons with big temperature difference. And in Huozhen County, the springtime temperature and winter temperature has a difference of about 3 to 9 Celsius degrees. So for lambs born in springtime, we could reduce the possibility of a frost, and mortality rate is much lower during the springtime. So in spring season, you have a better condition to recover from the birth. Additionally, the lambs were born in springtime. Because after several months, they would grow pretty well during the autumn season, and the pregnancy duration is about 5 months. So when it's time of giving birth, usually it's springtime already. So that's about the growth pattern of the lambs. And we fully consider the characters of the pasture livestock raising. And also we could be up to the demand of the market over the years. More high-quality lambs in Xinjiang are favored by consumers in the Chinese mainland, especially in the high-end markets. Usually lambs born in springtime grow to the summertime, and they feed themselves on the nutritious grasses in Xinjiang. And then when it comes to the autumn season, the lambs could be sold. And that's the peak season of the sales, especially sold to the high-end markets. In that way, we could add more economic benefits. So born in the springtime is really a good timing. It's consistent and compatible with the market's demand, the local weather conditions, and their growth patterns. During the migration, all the herdsmen move, and in the winter pasture, it's usually very cold. They have to graze in an environment of less than 0 Celsius degrees. And usually they migrate since March. And this time coincides with the pregnancy time. When it comes to the summertime, the newly born lambs would have a sufficient supply of grasses. And in August and September, they are able to graze and they can grow to a certain level up to the standard. So that's why we prefer for the lambs to be born in the springtime. And they grow in summertime when we have ample grasses to offer. So the lambs are very healthy. I find some plastic shelters here. What's the use of it? Once the herdsmen move to the spring pasture, we have to keep the lambs warm. So the ewe and the newly borns must be kept indoors, despite the weather conditions. So the owners would usually put up their own yurts and also such a plastic cover and shelter for the sheep. It's warm inside, regardless of the weather outdoors, like the rains and snowfalls. Both the ewe and the newly borns could stay inside the shelters. The herdsmen arrive here and put up their own yurts for their own living spaces and also a space for the lambs. This is like the hospital for the ewe to give birth and also for the ewe and the newly borns to stay warm inside. And what are they putting on the newborn? That is the cloth for the newborn to keep them warm, regardless of the weather, just in case they may fall sick, especially the infectious disease disseminated among the sheep. So those are the sheep doctors. Our National Agriculture and Livestock Industry Technology team has studied and developed this technology for a very long time. It's not challenging to develop such a piece of cloth, but it's really helpful for this entire husbandry industry. So we disseminate this piece of cloth over the years because it plays a very big role, even though it's easy developed. And such a sheep cloth has iterated for 4 generations. The first generation sheep cloth adopted the material of prophylactic silk. The price and quality of prophylactic silk was proper. And what is this one made of? It's already the 4th generation. It's a high molecular material. It's 4.0 version for the sheep clothes, and it's degradable. It could be recycled for further usage. Every piece of cloth could be used for 3 to 5 years. It can fend off the strong wind, rains, snowfalls, and strong sunshine. You may have found out observing the lambs wearing the cloth. Usually it's people wearing clothes, but now we put on the layer on the lambs. The first function of the sheep cloth is to keep them warm. For the newborns, especially in Xinjiang in early springtime, the temperature difference in the morning and between day and night is very big, and the newborn sheep have a poor function of adjusting temperature. So such a piece of cloth put on them could help them to keep the body temperature and lower the mortality rate. It's like another layer to keep their energy inside and to adapt to the springtime with big temperature difference. Even the ewe could wear the piece of cloth. It can reduce metabolism. And that could help to keep their energy while they're adapting to the cold temperatures. So multiple functions for the clothes. It could keep them warm, and also it can fend off the ultraviolet rays. In addition to the high technology like the clothes made of new materials, over the years, what other measures have been taken by the Xinjiang husbandry bureaus to support the high-quality development of husbandry? We have set up such a digital platform for husbandry. For example, traditionally, during the migration, the herdsmen move all together. They chase the sheep during the migration. But now with the big data platform, no matter where the sheep are located in the Ili River Valley, we could get the correct information. You would know the whereabouts in details about the sheep. The information makes the entire migration process more convenient. And back to the clothes. We have some digital technologies. There will be some quick testing equipment to be introduced later on. Those are like added value to this livestock industry. Like I introduced, this piece of cloth could keep the sheep warm. And it also could play its role in sanitation because the sheep gets cleaner wearing the clothes. And the lambs do not have to have direct contact with the pollutants. Meanwhile, during the lactation period of the ewe, their breasts are exposed. They may lick their own milk. Sometimes the newly born lambs are in lack of milk because of that. So, wearing this piece of cloth on the ewe could prevent such a condition. If the sheep wear the piece of cloth, they are very clean. Usually for the Kazakh people, we share the sheep and then we check the quality of the fur of the wool. I heard that once their sheep wear the piece of cloth, the wool is very clean, and they find no more loose after wearing the clothes. So this piece of cloth can protect the wool, ensuring the quality of the wool and reduce the possibility of the infectious disease, especially for the parasites. For the sheep to grow in the pasture, they may roll themselves in mud and sand, and also they may have some sweat. That's why we could produce some lanolin for the cosmetics. And also there might be some particles in the wool of the quality, like the thorns. So by wearing another layer, we could improve the quality of the wool. New technologies are supporting high-quality livestock industry in Xinjiang, bringing some changes to the herdsmen's lives. We surely hope that just like this pasture land, the herdsmen would live a more dynamic life. And finally, I hope that for all the herdsmen, they could successfully arrive in the spring pasture land. So that's about the situation in Xinjiang. Thank you for your time.